Hello. In the spirit of approaching this sensitive theological topic within Judaism, which I believe requires great care, I've added a few closing remarks to clarify points I made throughout the episode. So if there's anything I say that doesn't resonate, or a nuance I might not have addressed, feel free to listen until the end to see if I cover it. Thank you and enjoy. Memale Kol Almin. Sovev Kol Almin. I want to take you down a path and introduce you to a modality of intellectual exploration regarding understanding truth and divinity. When exploring and learning anything profound, it is essential that you come at it from the right perspective. Neglecting to do so will result in the subject matter not being understood. Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris gave us a stunning example of this a few years ago when they had two debates on the topic of epistemology. Think about the hundreds, if not thousands, of theist-atheist debates online prior to those two conversations about epistemology, where it became essentially evident that they don't agree on what is truth. How can you have subsequent conversations on the topic of truth if you don't agree what truth is? As such, if you truly do want to understand the topic, how you go about approaching the topic, the perspective you come from, means everything. It's the difference between understanding it and not understanding it. If a flat earther joins an astronomy class, he will not understand it, because everything that the flat earther is busy with, all the assumptions he has, all of his education essentially, came from a completely different place. So the path that we take to information is everything. The subject matter that I'm referring to in this video relates to understanding what divinity is, and more specifically how we relate to it. The following introduction establishes my premise and leads seamlessly into my central proposition. Baruch Spinoza was a Dutch Jewish philosopher who lived in the 1600s. He was put into cherem because he posited the idea that God and the universe are synonymous. That essentially means that God is the universe. That in and of itself wasn't so problematic as much as he didn't go the next step. He didn't agree what Jews believe, which is that Hashem is Memale Kol Almin and Sovev Kol Almin. He fills all worlds and he surrounds all worlds. This is a core tenet of our belief, and therefore Baruch Spinoza was put into cherem because his idea that divinity and the universe are synonymous, they're one idea, and that there's nothing beyond, was completely and utterly unacceptable to the Jewish community of the time. But I want to take a look at his particular claim, what the implications of that are, and perhaps explore whether the Jewish community, by putting him into cherem and completely shutting him out, if we overlooked an important key philosophy which was at the core and at the crux of his broader claim. To say that God and the universe are synonymous is not necessarily non-kosher. In fact, we believe that Hashem is everything. In other words, he's the power and life source in everything. We know that everything physical has a life source in it, has a vibration, is alive. And who powers that life? Hashem. That's what we believe, at least. So if Hashem is the power and life source in everything, doesn't it then follow that Hashem is synonymous with the universe? How about Ein Oid Milvadoi? There's nothing and no one but him. How about the many beliefs and ideas about oneness? We could deal with Sovev Kol Almin. We could deal with the ultimate truth, the infinite being that surrounds. But let's first look at the merit of the God within. In this episode, I'm not going to explore the merits of the God within. I think Jewish literature, Hasidus, Kabbalah, it's filled with it. Anyone who learns Jewish stuff understands and knows that Hashem is within everything. Hashem is the power and life source in everything. But rather, I want to touch on something that we can derive from this. And that is the following. When people learn Jewish literature, Torah, philosophy, Hasidus, and they're trying to understand Hashem, they're trying to get to know him, they're trying to get close to him, because Judaism has put such a warning sign around concepts that we shouldn't worship idols and we shouldn't have beliefs, such as Baruch Spinoza's belief that physicality is divinity, it scares people off from connecting inward, and it results in people looking outward, always looking outward to a magical, non-physical, non-understandable being. It subtracts the reality, which is that the only way to connect to the Sovev, the infinite being out there, is through the physical being right here. I am proposing that in order to understand the secrets, the profundity, the excellence, and the sublime beauty of Torah, of Jewish outlook, of truth, you have to build a strong relationship with the physical, and you have to understand that it is the gateway, it is the channel, and it has within it embedded divinity. Baruch Spinoza, in a sense, was correct. He didn't contend with a whole nother aspect. He denied it. He possibly didn't understand it or couldn't come to terms with it. Maybe he was too much of a rational thinker and couldn't understand those parts. Hashem didn't bless him with the clarity to understand those parts. But he wasn't necessarily wrong about the fact that all of the universe, every physical, every atom, every molecule is Hashem. The life force in it is Hashem. Now, of course, and needless to say, or maybe not needless to say, it is imperative perhaps to say, that you need to be very careful when you say things like this. I've seen online Jewish people making statements that are pantheistic by nature. Hashem sees through our eyes and hears through our ears. That is incorrect. Hashem does not need our eyes, does not need our ears to hear or see. That's when you're taking it a step too far. So there's a fine line, a nuance, a certain flavor that you need to acquire, and you could only do that through learning Jewish literature, Hasidus, by learning traditional copy, black and white text, by learning what our fathers and their forefathers learned. By doing that consistently, you will build up an appreciation, you will start to understand the recipe, you will start to understand the nuance, and it will allow you to walk this thin line of understanding how to tap into the divine aspect of physicality, but without going too far as to have pantheistic beliefs, nor to become, such a big fan of Baruch Spinoza and to believe that it just ends there, it's end all be all, because both of those are incorrect and they're not truth. Truth requires a fine navigation, an acquired taste, if you will, like sipping fine wine. You have to come to understand it. Why am I saying all of this? My core objective here is to illustrate that if you want to understand anything divine, anything truth, anything God, you have to go so deep inward and not connect outward. It's not out there, it's in here. Through going deep within, you begin to understand what is without. It's not like, my eyes are closed. Where are you, God? I'm trying to understand this infinite concept, this ideal, this abstract that I can't quite lay my finger on. Where are you? I can never find you. I've been talking to you. It's where are you? Can I feel you? Can I understand you? Because when you understand that Hashem is the power and life source in your body, in your consciousness, Cheluk Elokai Mima'al, Mamish, your soul is literally a spark, a piece of Hashem. I mean, how more, Baruch Spinoza can you go than that? We literally believe that our soul, our divine soul, is a spark of Hashem housed in our body. So it's all right here. So again, why does this matter? I feel like I keep on driving home my arguments for why you should understand my proposition, but I'm not actually driving home the proposition itself. I'm trying to think of the correct words. So much of Judaism, even in ultra-Orthodoxy, is too abstract, it's too magical, and it's not tangible. You can make it tangible by understanding this concept. You want to understand why Satmar is wrong about how the Beis Hamikdash is going to be built and Zionism, you have to understand this concept. If you want to understand how Hashem surrounds the world, infinite one, surrounds all worlds, he's an infinite being, then you have to understand that he fills all worlds. If you want to get close to Hashem, you can't do that by looking out. You have to look within. This idea is so central and vital for so many aspects of approaching divinity, approaching truth. Being that it is such an imperative, I will drill it from a couple more angles with a couple more points. One of the secrets of Memale Kol Almin, the Sovev Kol Almin, is that we can't actually understand Sovev. It's not a concept we could understand. The only mechanism that we have to conceptually understand Sovev Kol Almin is through the inside, is through the physical. It's our channel and our gateway to understanding that, because Memale Kol Almin is a reality, it's a truth, because I see it, I feel it, I am it. Because it's a truth, it is therefore an imperative. Sovev Kol Almin is a truth. By simple deductive reasoning, common sense, and logic. But my focal point here is that this is the way that Hashem set up the world. He set up the physical, and that the physical should be infused with the divine. And if that's the case, what is our channel to the divine? It has to be through the physical. So again, going back to the beginning, I feel like we did away with the philosophy so strongly that so many things in Judaism have become abstract and out there. Because if this is the universe and everything that we know, and we believe in the infinite being out there and everywhere, we're trying to grasp for that. We're trying to touch it, understand it, feel it. It's simply not practical. That's not the way it was designed. It might be one of the reasons why we miss our mark on so many of our endeavors. If we could come to understand and appreciate the fact that Hashem fills the world, and through that deep, deep, deep level of understanding, and I say deep 3 times because you could even say there's infinite depth to that alone. Looking deeper, deeper, deeper within, finding deeper meaning, deeper truth. Through that journey, I hate the word journey, it's overused. It's a cliche. ChatGPT killed it forever. But we got to keep using it because, it's accurate. Through that journey, you can begin to understand concepts of truth, concepts of divinity. If you approach anything, philosophy, concepts of Hashem, any spiritual ideas, without understanding this truth, I think you're off to the wrong start. This is why this is a great introduction for how you should approach divine topics in general. I still feel like I'm not quite hitting the spot. It's so difficult to have ideas and not be able to quite put your finger on it. This is why people write stuff down. I have a few notes here, but this is why you have to formulate it beforehand, because to really touch on the nakuda point, the specific punchline, if you will, of what I'm trying to touch on becomes so difficult sometimes. But I'll keep trying. In between going to tend to little Neve, little newborn that's right behind my camera, coming in and out of sleep and kvetching, I will try again. All right, so let me see if I could come up with 1 or 2 examples. Let's say, take any spiritual concept like Hidbudadut, personal prayer, talking to Hashem. If your natural conception is that Hashem is way out there, far out there, untangible, not understanding concept, you're going to have a difficult time making your Hidbudadut effective. Whereas if you employ my advice that I'm giving here of understanding Hashem from within, it's a completely different ballgame. This is what I'm trying to get to. And this applies to everything. This is what I'm saying. It's a path that I'm trying to introduce you to when you approach anything divine, anything truth related. If you approach anything divine and truth related with this in mind, with this mindset, then you are coming in on the correct frequency, quote unquote, with the right mindset and the right perspective to understand the concept. If you don't, then you're not coming in with the correct idea to understand the concept even, and you could be led astray. So you could try things for years and they don't work. It's because you're not understanding where the channel is, where it comes from, so on and so forth. That's an example. All of the secrets that we learn, Hasidus, Torah, all of spirituality, it's all secrets. It's revealing truth, because all of these things are hidden from like the mundane and everyday mind and life and thought. But our books, our Sfarim, they reveal these things. Almost all of these revelations are revelations that help you understand a deeper level of insight, whether it's on the topic of psychology or your soul or your mind. It helps you understand a quote-unquote secret that is within. So if you could align with that reality and come into it understanding that, then there will be less hindrance on your path to understanding whatever it is that you're trying to understand. I hope that's enough clarity. I would love to talk about this more, but like I said, little Neve is getting worked up and I'm starting to lose my train of thought. Thank you for tuning in. Peace and love. If you've made it to the end, thank you. Here are my closing remarks. The purpose of this episode will only come into full view as future episodes build upon it. Attempting to record it off the cuff without structured notes didn't quite achieve the objective that I'd hoped for. This experience reminds me how essential careful planning is for complex ideas. When I eventually get around to releasing an episode titled We All Agree, consider this a preface to that, or an introduction to that. Listening back to this episode in post-editing, I noticed how much framing and context were missing, to the point that I briefly thought of redoing it. But I stopped and reminded myself that podcasts aren't polished productions. They're meant to capture natural, raw conversation as ideas take shape, grow, and evolve. The aim isn't perfection. It's just fascinating to me to see how important verbal articulation is. When you have an idea, no matter how many times you've thought it through in your head, even if you wrote it down, if you haven't verbally articulated it multiple times, it won't come out as a complete, concise, and adequately refined idea. I've heard it said that intelligence is information compressed. To really compress a lot of information, you need to understand an idea deeply and have communicated it many times. It's actually the verbal articulation that helps a person sharpen, organize, refine, and compress their thoughts. So I'm looking forward to more conversations on this topic. I have many thoughts on this subject and related subjects like pantheism, monism, and more. I'm excited for what's ahead. Anyway, here are a few minor clarifications. Firstly, while I use the phrase Hashem is everything, I want to emphasize a critical distinction within Judaism. Hashem is indeed the sustaining force behind all existence, yet he is not identical to physical matter, or what we call chomer. There's a clear difference between what Hashem created and what he is. Without this distinction, idol worship wouldn't hold the same significance. In other words, the essence of Hashem's presence must not be conflated with physical substance itself. This perhaps touches on where Baruch Spinoza's interpretation diverges. Moreover, there's a common misconception about spiritually aware individuals, that they're detached from reality. In fact, I think the opposite is true. It's often the average person who drifts into a kind of haze, while those deeply grounded in spirituality are intensely aware of the physical world's reality. I can't stress this enough. The more spiritually aware you become, the more you master the physical, as well as the spiritual hidden within it. And lastly, when I say, what is more Baruch Spinoza than that, I'm referring specifically to his perspective on the divine's all-pervading nature. For Baruch Spinoza's philosophy to align with Jewish thought, it would need to embrace the concept of Memale Kol Almin, that Hashem fills all worlds while distinguishing the rest. What I mean to say is that within Jewish philosophy, there's a distinction between God's essence and his manifestations in the world. Spinoza's view can sometimes blur these lines by suggesting a more unified existence, where everything is a part of God. To align with Jewish thought, it would be crucial for his philosophy to make clear distinctions between, number one, God's essence, the Ein Sof, the transcendent aspect of Hashem that is beyond all creation, and number two, creation, the physical universe and all entities within it, which are sustained by Hashem but do not constitute his essence. In other words, acknowledging that while Hashem permeates creation, he remains separate from it, which is a fundamental aspect of traditional Jewish thought that differs from Spinoza's more integrated view of divinity. And one final point I want to mention before I close is that I may have insinuated that because of this philosophy he was put into Cheren, and it's not necessarily so. Baruch Spinoza was quite the troublemaker, at least in the perspective of the Jewish community, causing lots of issues. So it wasn't necessarily specifically because of this particular view, but this particular view was sort of like the catalyst or the driving force behind everything else that he thought and did. He has books and he has ideas on many categories of philosophy. This core idea is central to all of his other ideas. So I just wanted to clarify that. I hope this clarification was sufficient. I plan to create a couple of slides so that in upcoming episodes we can visualize these concepts. I find that visualization greatly aids comprehension. Peace and love.
Leave a like and subscribe.